Last night, a series of protests and marches took place in cities around the world with tens of thousands rallying to force world leaders to do whatever it takes to avert disastrous climate change over the next 70 or so years. They're doing that in advance of the COP21, where diplomats from 190 different countries are gathering in Paris right now to discuss updates on a roadmap for all of these different countries to cut climate emissions and to hopefully strengthen those over time. So we're going to talk about some of the plans, what effect those plans might have. Spoiler alert, right now it doesn't look like they're going to do enough. But it is good to see that in cities literally around the world that these protests were going on. Now, unfortunately, they were going to be sort of headquartered by a massive protest in Paris during the actual talks. But unfortunately, as another tragic consequence of the Paris terrorist attack, those sorts of protests are now illegal right now in Paris. And so cops have been breaking them up with tear gas and forcing people to disperse, which it sucks because the people in France are perhaps the most driven to try to get these world leaders to do what they're supposed to do. But anyway, let's talk about some of what countries going into these talks have pledged to limit their emissions in the future. The United States is vowing to cut its greenhouse gas emissions at least 26% below 2005 levels by 2025. The EU is going to cut their emissions 40% below 1990 levels by 2030, which is more impressive. China has vowed that its emissions will peak around 2030. That's bad news. And then it will get about 20% of its electricity from carbon-free sources by then. So you're seeing that some of these countries, now look, China still wants to develop. They believe that to do that, they're going to have to use dirty energy, unfortunately. And China and India will often criticize the EU and the United States, saying, look, you already industrialized using coal and things like that. Why shouldn't we be able to do that? We're going to circle back around that to the case of India in a second. But I do want to bring up this chart. It's going to show you a breakdown of global emissions by country right now. And you're seeing there that China rapidly accelerating over the past 15 years, the U.S. Increasing, but being generally quite stable for about 40 years or so, and China an increasingly large area of there. But you're seeing contributions from a number of different countries. And so this is very much a worldwide effort. It's going to be necessary to stop what's generally seen as we don't want more than a 2-degree increase in global temperatures. Even the 2 degrees is going to be disastrous, but more than that would be even worse. Now, to give you an idea of, bring up this next chart, it's going to show you our current policies and where the forecast effect in global temperatures will be. And you're seeing there plus 3.3 degrees with the current policy. Now, there's some variance potentially. It's impossible to know exactly what's going to happen. But right now, with the current policy, even with what's expected to come out of the COP21, we are in terrible, terrible territory here. Now, if we can increase the pledges, there's different policies that can be put into effect to lower the amount of heating to just 2 degrees or maybe even less, but that's going to rely on advancing technology and hopefully putting a framework into place at this conference where every 5 or 10 years, it's currently being debated, we can inspire countries, spur countries to do what's necessary to integrate new technologies and to exceed the current expectations of what's going to come out of these talks.
Right, so this story is really a mixed bag because there is some progress on, dealing with climate change, taking the threat seriously and, making some real sacrifices in order to at least mitigate the problem. But at the same time, these leaders of all these various countries have made these pledges, which is good. They made the pledges on their own based on, their own businesses, their own unique situations in these countries. Exactly. And so, they think that they can make it happen. But another thing to take into consideration is that even though these pledges have been made, you have to take into consideration the lawmakers within those countries who might have some vested interests in preventing these pledges from actually going through. So the United States would be a perfect example of that. Obama has been fighting when it comes to climate change, but of course lawmakers in the United States have been bought off by oil and coal, and so they're refusing to pass the appropriate laws to keep carbon emissions low. At the same time, though, I love that all of these major countries are coming together and there's no debate as to whether or not climate change exists or whether or not it's man-made. They've already accepted that. They know that that's the truth, and now they're moving forward to come up with some real solutions. The solutions that they've pledged, unfortunately, are not enough. But right now, there's supposed to be some sort of political negotiation and also some foreign aid to see whether or not some of these countries will make even stronger pledges.
Yeah, and look, whether the current plan that's being hammered out right now is going to be enough, which it doesn't seem like it's going to, the fact that so many of these countries have, as you said, on their own come out with these plans works to undercut one of the most the most dangerous arguments against us doing anything here in the United States is that, well, why should we harm ourselves if all these other countries are going to continue to pollute?
Right.
Well, they can say that, but the countries are working to limit their emissions. Maybe not as much as we would like, but if a country like China is willing to drastically change their energy consumption over the next 14 or 15 years, then perhaps we can do something here. And I love that on every other issue, we're expected in America to be leaders. The American president's supposed to be a leader, okay? We don't follow, we lead. When it comes to climate change, maybe once every other country has done something, we'll do something. It's interesting how that works out. You pointed out the need for some financial aid of a sort. So there are countries like India, other countries that can't necessarily afford either the technology to lower their emissions, or they believe that if they don't use things like coal, they're going to harm their economic productivity, their development over the next few decades, and so they need to be sort of compensated for that. Now, that's a lot of money. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars, but on the other hand, we're also talking about the continuation of our species, so maybe we should make that bargain.